reports published by WikiLeaks have revealed that the U.S. government is using highly advanced spyware to watch its own citizens. The system called Trapwire allegedly accesses.
Private Bradley Manning is allegedly responsible for the largest government leak in U.S. history. After being held without charges for over 2 years, Manning's pretrial hearings finally started today. He's charged with 22. Starting off this hour, CIA Director David Petraeus is
Reject off with all kinds of phobias and threats which don't exist in it at all. If you start getting frightened of it, then you make it worse.
Part of the battlefield, and people can be held without trial, whether an American citizen or not.
So then, whenever confronted with a ghost, walk straight into it, and it will disappear.
You see, the CIA created Osama bin Laden. They recruited him. They trained him. They found his leadership. They brought them all together. They showed them how to fight the Soviet Union in Afghanistan, and when that was over, they still continued to fund him and train him, and they're now using him to help bring about world government by making him the big boogeyman because they can't use Saddam Hussein anymore.
The CIA laundered hundreds of millions of dollars through BCCI to Osama bin Laden to dole out for the operations of the Afghan and Arab fighters who later came to be known as Al-Qaeda.
A reporter from CNN and his little camera crew got into Osama bin Laden's secret hideout and conducted an interview. You don't believe me? Tune into CNN. They're probably running it right now as I'm speaking. Another social engineering project to change the minds and the attitudes and the beliefs of the people of the world, and especially the United States, to bring about one world socialist totalitarian government.
The Bush family in the United States is intimately connected with the bin Laden family, which is one of the most prominent families in Saudi Arabia.
Do you realize the technology that they have to be able to eavesdrop on every single conversation in the world, no matter how it's transmitted, and pinpoint the location of every one of those transmissions? And so I can tell you with a certainty, they must do something terrible in order to stop this backlash and regain the sympathy of the mass herds of sheeple out there. The vast networks and intricate web spun over all these years by the CIA, the FBI, and the NSA can't find Osama bin Laden, but CNN can. Illiterate, uneducated, stupid, ignorant population. Telling you right now, as I told you before, I'm telling you that something's going to happen. If it doesn't happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks, something terrible is going to happen in this country. And it's going to be a terrorist attack.
You may or may not know that the CIA and the FBI have both helped to cover up the role of Saudi Arabia in the 9/11 attacks ever since it happened.
No, it was brought down with shape charges on the columns, just exactly like what happened when it was brought down first, when half of it was brought down. They believe themselves to be a part of a world, and they want to bring about a world government. So they're sympathetic to this whole one world government ideal.
And adding to the complexity of the whole thing is the truth that the CIA itself, which is completely under control of the Rothschild syndicate, and those of you who are familiar with the methods of the Rothschild banking dynasty, you should immediately recognize this tactic of financing and funding and supporting both sides. Prince Al-Walid of Saudi Arabia has just been arrested for corruption by the young Saudi crown prince, whose name is Prince Salman, with the backing of his father, who's the king of Saudi Arabia. Prince Al-Walid owns a sizable stake in one of the largest banks in the world, Citigroup, based in New York City, along with Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo. Citigroup is it's known as one of the four horsemen of banking. 80% of the New York Federal Reserve Bank, which is the largest of the Fed banks, it's secretly owned by just eight families. Well, 80% of the New York Fed is owned by just 8 families. They are the families of the Rothschilds of Paris and London. Then we've got the Rockefellers of New York. We have the Goldman Sachs of New York, the Lehmans and the Kuhn Loebs of New York. Jumping over to Germany, we've got the notorious Warburg family. We have the Lazards of Paris, and we have the Israel Moses Sharifs of Rome. These are the main banking power players when it comes to the Federal Reserve. These are the ones using their vast wealth and political influence to cause wars and conflicts that benefit them and their financial investments. That there really are these powerful families in the United States that are engaging in absolutely wicked business practices with very, very evil people around the world. If that sounds like conspiracy theory to you, the Bush family in the United States is intimately connected with the Bin Laden family, which is one of the most prominent families in Saudi Arabia. Well, President George H.W. Bush,
the Bush family,
who is the father of Shrub, President George W. The Bush family. H.W. Bush was connected with the CIA from at least 1953, when operatives inside the agency, including Thomas Devine, helped the senior Bush to set up his first oil venture, and this was called Zapata Petroleum. Zapata. We know that Bush himself was working as a secret operative for the CIA, and that he played a role in the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Of course, Bush denies all this, but
The Bush family.
President Gerald Ford was our president in the early 70s. President Carter was in office during the late 70s. Well, during that time, George H.W. Bush, he served for a time as the CIA director. He was actually CIA director for part of both of those presidents' terms. And it was during the 1970s that the CIA was ramping up these covert efforts to create a Muslim jihadist network. And George Bush directed some of that effort as the director of the CIA. The CIA was using this dirty offshore bank to funnel money to their money man in Pakistan and Afghanistan, this guy named Osama bin Laden. And the name of the bank that they created for this operation is called the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, the BCCI. So the BCCI was the bank for drug and arms traffickers. Between 1977 and 1979, the Zionist cabal put George H.W. Bush to work as the director of the Council on Foreign Relations. That's big. A lot of people don't know that about George H.W. Bush. In 1978, George H.W. Bush's son, W., started his first oil company. It was called Arbusto. And over the company's first decade, George W. had to have friends bail him out 3 different times to keep his company from going bankrupt. From 1980 to 1988, his dad, George H.W. Bush, was Vice President of the United States. During those years, 80 to 88, the CIA was continuing to funnel money to Osama bin Laden through this fake bank, this shell, called BCCI. BCCI was also the bank used by the CIA during the 80s to run guns to Saddam Hussein in Iraq. And it was the bank that was used to launder money during George H.W. Bush's illegal Iran-Contra operations. Well, anyway, H.W. became president in 1988. That same year, with Bush Jr.'s company still on the brink,
Someone had to step in and save him.
the person that did that was
Salam bin Laden.
the older brother of Osama bin Laden. Also, at the time, was the head of the bin Laden group. So the older brother of Osama bin Laden, made a significant investment
In George W. Bush's oil company.
and saved it from collapse. We've got Osama bin Laden's brother, Salam, saving George W.'s company from going out of business while George W.'s father was President of the United States.
The Bush family.
George H.W. Bush was helping Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan, and Osama's older brother Salam bailed out H.W.'s son's oil company. And
Does it sound suspicious to you?
if you found out that same year, 1988, Salam bin Laden
Died in a mysterious plane crash.
Where did it happen? It happened in the home state of Texas.
Where the Bush family lived. These are dangerous people.
Well, after George H.W. Bush lost the election in 92, he went on to work as the senior advisor of a company called the Carlyle Group.
Carlyle Group.
This is a company that served, that several members of the bin Laden family had invested millions and millions of dollars in. And the chairman of the Carlyle Group, this was a guy who was the former deputy director of the CIA. Carlyle Group, at the time that Bush Sr. joined it, the chairman was Frank Carlucci, former deputy director of the CIA. And Carlucci had also served as the U.S. Secretary of Defense while George H.W. Bush was vice president. So let's move forward. 1996, intelligence services that were investigating Osama bin Laden were ordered by top-level CIA officials to back off their investigation.
Told them to back off, back off, back off. Told them to back off.
Jump forward to November 1998. George H.W. Bush traveled to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, to meet with the bin Laden family on behalf of the Carlyle Group. He also met again directly with the bin Laden family in January of 2000. And at first, Bush denied that this meeting took place, and Bush had to retract his statement and say, "Oh yeah, sorry, slipped my mind. Yes, I did meet with the bin Laden family." Well, the Carlyle Group invested very, very heavily in the weapons industry. The Carlyle Group is part of the military-industrial complex. They fund it. They provide a lot of the seed money for a lot of the weapons industry activity. So when George H.W. Bush's son, George W., launched a war in Iraq, both George H.W. Bush, who was heavily invested in the Carlyle Group, and the bin Laden family that was heavily invested in the Carlyle Group,
Both of them made absolute fortunes off of their investments in the military-industrial complex.
fortunes. And after the 9/11 attacks, all flights were grounded. Nobody was allowed to fly in or out of the country. But Daddy Bush and Bush Jr., they arranged for Osama bin Laden's brother Shafiq, as well as 23 other members of Osama bin Laden's immediate family, to fly out of the country. Bush Sr. was the CIA director while the agency was sending money to Osama bin Laden. And of course, the entire bin Laden family, they're all Saudis. Osama's brother Salam bailed out George W.'s oil company, again collusion between the Saudis and this American family. Bush Sr. went to work after serving as president of the United States. He went to work for a company that the bin Laden family had heavy investments in.
Fortunes.
And together, the Bushes and the bin Ladens made hordes of money.
Fortunes.
When Bush Jr. took the USA to war against Iraq. Powerful families around the world, they don't have loyalty to America. You think George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush care about the American people? They don't. It's terrorist attacks that were actually the brainchild of the CIA, carried out with Saudi funding and with the assistance and coordination of the Mossad.
These people, these families, are the spiritual spawn of Satan.
The Bush family they're not just out there isolated. They actually play a significant role in the New World Order itself. Their oil investments led them to link arms with other international members of this evil oil and energy cartel. Today, one of the most significant developments, the discovery of a massive amount of oil in Syria's Golan Heights, which is currently under
military occupation by the State of Israel.
So there's this Israeli energy company that wants to tap into the Golan reserves because it's going to yield fantastic profits, unbelievable wealth.
Fortunes.
The company is based in New Jersey. It's called Genie Energy. And Genie's board of directors consists of 8 people. Lord Jacob Rothschild. It includes
former CIA Director James Woolsey.
It includes former U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney. It includes media mogul Rupert Murdoch. And then the other 4 are, you would know them if I name them, probably. They're neoconservatives who are loyal to the geopolitical goals of the New World Order. So this New World Order syndicate is trying to take control of the resources of the Middle East. So what we're witnessing in the world today is nothing less than a fight between those who are loyal
to the Rothschild New World Order syndicate and those who are resisting the New World Order's control.
Their attempt to establish a global hegemony.
Who you talk to, how to market to you. And you say, well, an awful lot of innovation went on in universities, but the projects that get funded in universities are still either funded through alliances with business or government sponsored in some way. And it's very rare that you came across something that you could imagine that had a lot of money behind it that would develop a new technology that wasn't an A, B, or C of technological change.
So what does it mean to live in this world of technology, mediated by these power blocks, that have these sorts of passions and history? And when their ability to spread and perpetuate their passions is more powerful today than ever before.
Facts on their own are not the same as interpreting the facts, putting the facts into a framework, and even more important than facts are ideas. But if we are always having recourse to an external source of memory, then I think it's going to have a severe impact.
Maybe there's a... Did I see the lineup for help?
Commercial push or corporate push to collect as much data as possible. Collect as much data as possible.
Collect as much data as possible.
Stare into the lights, my pretties. The society of the spectacle. Captive populations glued to screens, engineered with ever-increasing precision and insight.
The purpose is to monitor, be able to monitor what people are doing. You build social networks for everybody. That then turns into the graph, and then you index all that data to that graph, which means you can pull out a community that gives you an outline of the life of everybody in the community. And if you carry it over time from 2001 up, you have that 10 years worth of their life that you could lay out in a timeline. That involves anybody in the country. The dangers here are that we fall into something like a totalitarian state like East Germany.
Their intention to rule rests with the annihilation of consciousness.
Anyone who knows anything about the Internationale, or the secret society known as the International, the Communist Party, All of these organizations are one. Socialism stems from the mystery schools. That's where it comes from. You'll find that most of the mystery schools preach the tenets of the Communist Manifesto. It came out of ancient documents and an ancient philosophy. The Communist Party, International Socialism, they're all the same. Freemasonry, the Knights of Malta, the Rosencross, they're all the same organization.
They're all the same organization.
Remember, one of their tenets is, Adam Weishaupt said this, the strength of our order lies in its concealment and in its many different names, appearing under many different names and many different occupations, sometimes even appearing to oppose ourselves, appearing to oppose ourselves, appearing to oppose ourselves. But at the highest levels, they're all the same, because they use the system to coerce the people to go along what they want. If they want to change something in a certain direction, they'll look at the population, the society, the problems that exist, and they will intentionally foment a problem in order to get the people to cry for an answer to that problem, which will be the direction that they want to take that society into. They will create two opposing groups. At the top of these two opposing groups will be their people, so that it's a controlled conflict, bringing about a controlled resolution or a desired end. You guys better wake up to this. I'm telling you, you better wake up to it. You better pay attention to what you're hearing here. Why are we all doing this? Why am I doing this? Why is he doing this? Why are all these people doing this when most of you out there sit back and do nothing? Being afraid is not going to solve our problems, because fear itself is a weapon that they use against us.
Caucasian male, doesn't appear armed, wearing sunglasses. I don't like this one bit. Not one bit.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and I won't have it. You have meddled with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and I won't have it. Is that clear? Is that clear?
Mr. Beale!
Mr. Beale! Is that clear? Mr. Beale!
There is only one holistic system of systems. One vast and immane, interwoven, interacting, multivariate, multinational dominion of dollars. Petrodollars, electrodollars, multi-dollars, Reichmarks, rims, rubles, pounds, and shekels. It is the international system of currency which determines the totality of life on this planet.
And you have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
Am I getting through to you, Mr. Beale?
Why me?
Because you're on television, dummy. 60 million people watch you every night of the week, Monday through Friday.
I have seen the face of God.
You just might be right, Mr. Beale.
Fear, doubt, deception, greed, hate. They use these tactics to control you and to divide you. Do you trust and truly believe that elites, corporations, and politicians have humanity's best interest at the forefront of their decision-making process? We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect